What's up, everyone? Doogie here. I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, so I figured might as well get it done now. This is my most prized Sun system. It's a Sunfire v880. I actually do use this space heater every single day. The server is currently not in production. I am working on setting up all the server software, basically Apache, PHP, MySQL setup with the CMS. You know the deal. So this particular system has 8 1.2 gigahertz UltraSpark 3 processors. Each processor has 8 megs of cache. I do have a bare CPU board. Pick that up here for you. This is a bad board that I bought from the eBay auction. They didn't want me to send it back because, let's face it, each processor board's 20 pounds. This is with the heat sinks removed. There are 16 RAM slots per board. It uses basically an SD RAM at a clock speed of 150 megahertz. Then we have the RAM controllers, various things for the Fireplane, I believe it's called, is the packetized interface that this uses to communicate between other CPU boards and the rest of the system. These two right here are basically power supplies. Takes the 48-volt power rail and steps it down to the proper voltages needed by all the components. 2 other voltage regulator modules go in here. I have those sitting on my desk. We have the actual UltraSpark 3s themselves. Let's see if I can get a close up. This camera's pretty stupid. But yeah, there you go. They actually sit in here pretty lightly. They pop right out. It's an interesting CPU cartridge that I've never seen before. It has all these pads, and it's like a kind of like a BGA style on the bottom, but they're square pads. It's quite interesting. I'm glad I had an extra one to take apart. And then down here we have the cache. And I think that was the particular problem with this system board, was there was something going on with the cache, and I'm not sure, but there's this goo that was all over this board. I'm not sure if it was heatsink compound or what, but instead of just being concentrated on top of the chip surfaces like you would imagine, it was all over the bottom and the sides here, so not sure what was up with that. This is the bus connector, and this one, okay, this isn't one of the ones shipped to me, I don't think. It's got a good bus connector. I had a couple of these shipped to me that were bad. I'm not sure how many pins that is, but quite a few. So there we have the CPU board. Before we get into too many details about the system configuration and the upgrade we'll be performing today, figured I'd show you what we got to work with. Now these UltraSparks are great CPUs. Actually, this is a very usable workstation. Let's demonstrate that. Looks like I got Firefox open somewhere else. Yep, there it is. I run a VNC server as well. Must have been open there. Firefox doesn't like that so much. This is the CPU monitor up here in the top right corner of the screen. It shows all 8 processors. As you can see, the internet loads pretty good. Let's go ahead and try YouTube. Seems like it loads alright. I would say it's on par with any other 1.2 gigahertz machine. Let's go ahead and try and watch a video. Now, as you'll notice, when the video starts to play, all 8 processors play a role in rendering all of that. I do have a really nice graphics card in here, which you'll see in a moment. And no, this is not the Sunfire v880Z. I do not have an XPR 4000 graphics accelerator. I considered picking one up, but I decided I'd rather have the extra 2 processors because I want to do programming and try crunching some numbers. So anyway, it seems to work good. The frame rate's good. I've noticed that with this particular graphics card, it does not like full screen mode always. It seems okay right now, but for the really fast moving stuff, it does have a tendency with issues. But all in all, a very responsive machine. I also have a sound card on this system since I do play music. So that's Firefox. I'm running Oracle Solaris 10, the latest that they have out actually. So it has all the patches that it can without actually paying for the freaking subscription. So yeah, that's pretty much that. The wallpaper is one of my cars. I guess we could show a couple other things. For example, OpenOffice. You'd be surprised at how responsive all this stuff is. It comes right up. Very little waiting. Okay, now that we've kind of taken a look at the machine, let's power it down and we'll do a little bit of a tour and an upgrade. Now, since I'm logged in as a regular user, I don't have the power down options. So, go ahead and drop to run level 0, which is the open boot prom. Once it fully goes down, all the other fans will kick on. There it goes. We'll go ahead and power it off. Okay. So the way I have this system set up is it's underneath this desk here. This is my showroom counter in my shop. Lower this down. Good stuff. We'll go ahead and pull the system out here and give you a little tour. This machine weighs somewhere in the order of 300 pounds. There's a lot of hardware there to it. Now you can kind of get an idea of the size. Okay, first I'm going to the cords. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with the front. Now on a typical v880 and 890, have your power button here, have your keyhole. This is power off, this is on with the power button unlocked. So you turn it to on and then hit that. This is the lock position, which it's in now. It disables the power button from being pressed, as well as stop A on the Sun keyboard and a couple other things. And then this is diagnostic. It runs a more in-depth startup sequence. Lots of extra tests, verifies that all the hardware is working correctly. And then a factory SCSI CD drive. And then my 2 serial ATA hot swappable drive bays. These are trayless. Go ahead and pop one out so you can see. So you pop it like that, and then it's just the drive. Bare drive, nothing else. This is what I use for backups. Seems to work a lot better than tapes. And then on this side, we have our drives. The system does have the optional backplane, so there's 12 drives total. All of them are 146 gig. Seagate Cheetah or Barracuda. Here's what one of them looks like. It's Cheetah. Model number, let's see if I can get it there. Focus. Yeah, this camera sucks balls. Model number ST3146707FC. These are fiber channel drives. That's the connector. They are 2 gigabit per second. So faster than SATA 1, but not as fast as SATA 2. And how this particular machine is set up is these 2 drives are mirrored. So basically parallel write, sequential read. So a lot faster on the read side. And then the next 10 drives are all set up as one RAID 5. It's approximately 1.5 terabytes. Works out really good. Okay. Now let's go ahead and open up the machine. Take a look at the machine itself. Now let's take a look inside the system. As you can see, we have our 4 processor boards that we talked about earlier. 16 sticks of RAM per CPU board. We have some indicator lights here. They will indicate if any maintenance needs to be performed on the board. Let's say we have a bad RAM stick, it will offline that bank of RAM and will illuminate this light here, and one on the front panel indicating which half of the server needs to be serviced. Over here in front we have fans. There are 2 sets of fans. It only runs one set at a time and turns off the second set in the operating system as a bit of redundancy. And this thing is loud with all the fans on. See if we can get one out of here. Now I just set this up a month ago and it's already this dusty. I don't know if the camera can pick that up. So we have 2, I can't remember what millimeter they are. They're definitely bigger than 120, maybe a 250. No, not 250, that's way too big, but like a 200 or something. Each fan pulls 1.85 amps at 12 volts DC, so you know it's pretty serious. Nidec TA600 DC. If anyone wants to look that up, they are an excellent set of fans. And so 2 here, 2 in here. Back in. Great server for redundancy. You can lose lots of sticks of memory. You can lose a set of fans. There's 2 more fans hiding up in here. Same redundant setup as before. And that's pretty much it for this side. Hiding back in there, which would be really hard to see at this point because this is the lowest that this tripod goes. And the battery door is shit on this camera, so I can't take it off. But there's a voltage regulator module in there and cables for the fiber channel hard drives. This has an onboard fiber channel hard drive controller. A couple of heat sinks, not too much else. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the other side and back of the system. Close this up here. Okay, looking at the back, you'll notice we have 2 access covers. These are for the Sun XVR 4000 graphics accelerators. Very nice. They interface directly with the Fireplane bus, so they're the same system bus as the CPUs, instead of having to travel over the PCI bus. We have all the cards here, which we will talk about later. And then down here we have Ethernet, 2 USB, and 125 pin for the serial port. Has both serial ports A and B on it. Only serial port A is asynchronous. Down here we have a remote management card, which has a serial port on it, an Ethernet port on it, and a modem port, so you can actually dial into this machine and work with the Open Boot PROM directly and boot the operating system or do whatever you need to do for reconfiguration. Also up here in this corner we have 1 gigabit fiber optic Ethernet port, and I do have the same port on my Cisco Catalyst switch, so I plan on getting the cable. Down here we have 3 1100 watt power supplies. I can run on 2 supplies. I did run it on 1 supply just to see if it would do it, and I imagine it wouldn't last long like that, but it is possible. Very well built to handle fault tolerance. I mean, you can lose a power supply, you can lose a bunch of fans, it just keeps on chugging. Alright, we'll take this. Okay, looks like I was able to shorten up the tripod, and now we can get a really good look at the guts of the system. So the card configuration currently, and I'll start from the bottom and go up. This is that remote management card that we had discussed earlier. And it has its own special slot. It's kind of like on the old 486s when they had the 32-bit slot for the graphics card. It's that brown back connector that you would see after the 16-bit ISA. So that's its own entity. And then on the bottom here we have a fiber channel SCSI card. This is going to be for a tape drive, hopefully. And then this next card up you would normally find on the v880Z. It's also available for a few other systems. It's USB and FireWire. I do believe the card is USB 2.0. It has 3 USB 2.0 on the back. It has 2 USB 2.0 internally, which is nice. And then it has 2 FireWire 400, I believe, on the back. 1 FireWire 400 internally. The next card up is my sound card. It is a Sound Blaster Audigy 2. It is compatible with the Solaris OSS sound drivers that you can find online. This next card up is my SCSI/Ethernet card. It is dual gigabit Ethernet and dual SCSI. I'm going to use this for interfacing with arrays, or I actually have a zip drive that I intend on using. I have a thing for old media. This next card up here is the graphics card. It's a dual GPU Sun XVR 1200 graphics accelerator. It is dual head, dual DVI. I had to modify this card to actually get it to fit in here. Pull it out so you can see what it looks like. Now you'll notice I don't have a wrist strap on, but I am grounding myself to the chassis before I touch the card. We'll get the wrist strap on for the upgrade. I guess I should unplug the monitor, right? There we go. Here she comes. And here's what this looks like. We got our dual DVI on the end. And this has gen lock and a few other really nice advanced video options. This particular card has 140 megs of texture memory and 100 megs of buffer memory or something. Like, it has 3 or 4 different memories. Still working on understanding it. Got a pair of cooling fans there that blow across, and this like metal housing here. Got the power supply section back here, and then you can see the memory is around here. And there's some more hiding back there, and we got some on the back side. Now, from what I understand, if you do single head, both GPUs can collectively process for single head, which is what I'm running in this case. And honestly, from what I've read, these video cards have a lot of proprietary commands and options to them where they don't support GL in the same way that, say, an ATI Rage graphics card would, and therefore the Rage graphics card may even be a better option than one of these, or the XVR 4000. Okay, got the graphics card all sorted out. Now we only have 2 bus slots left. These are my 66 megahertz slots, so you have to be pretty choosy about what you want in here. Since this is going to be my main file server, basically one central storage vault, I guess you could call it, for my information. The key here being redundancy, which is why I have the giant RAID 5 array and all of the optional fans and everything else. I always want my files, and I don't want them corrupt. So keeping that in mind, we have our last 2 cards. This one is another fiber channel SCSI card, but this card is going to be interfaced with the main hard drive set. Basically, this allows a bit of a redundancy. Say one controller fails, it will fail over to the other one in operation. But the one really neat thing is that it will allow disk multipathing. So it allows double the throughput, because file operations have more than one potential way to get to their destination. And then the very last card on top is a SPARC Solaris compatible SATA card. It is not RAID, but it is just SATA. I believe it's SATA 2. This particular card has 4 ports on it. Move this up so you can see, I guess. There we go. So 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 you can see are occupied by these cables. These cables run up over the fans. You can see those. There's one down there. Up, over, and then these are the back of the 5 1/4 bays. And then this is the back plane. This is actually the optional one. The upper one is the extension back plane. The lower one is the base back plane. And so you got power connectors here. These ribbons do the indicator lights. And then we have our fiber channel connectors down here. And then that green LED you see hiding down here, this is the power distribution board for all three power supplies. Whenever servicing one of these systems, you will want to have at least one power supply plugged in, so when you hook your wrist strap, you are earthed. So that pretty much covers the insides of the system. There isn't too much else hiding out. I believe the real-time clock is on this side. Yeah, there's battery ports back down there. Not too much else. I actually filled the card slots on this one. So let me go ahead and grab that upgrade. We'll talk about what we're doing today. Okay, so this is our upgrade. What I have here is a Sun PCI card. Now you're like, some of you are thinking, duh, this is PCI. Well, don't let the name mislead you. PCI stands for PC, Personal Computer Interface, I believe. And what this is a full x86 computer on a single PCI card. Here on the ports, we have VGA, we have a Cat5 port, Ethernet, we have a USB port, probably not 2.0 I would imagine. This stuff's about 10 years old. And then we have our own audio out and microphone, and we have serial and parallel as you'd be accustomed to finding on a regular PC. No goofy Sun stuff. Very interesting, right? And then here we have two SODIMM memory slots. These take PC100 laptop memory, this particular card. From what I understand, it is 700 megahertz. And before we put this in, we're going to double check the bearings on the CPU fan. Basically, I got this card out of an Ultra 10 that somebody was going to throw away. And I wanted one of these cards because if you don't understand the SPARC architecture, it's different. It's not x86. And basically what that means is that SPARC uses a different set of instructions to execute things. It executes things in a different way. Which means that it cannot run Windows directly. Now, they did have Windows for MIPS and stuff like that back in the day. I remember at one point you could run Windows on your Silicon graphics system, or if you had a DEC Alpha you could run it on there too. I used to have an Alpha machine with Windows NT for Alpha. There you go. Just had to massage it. Now this is quite interesting, the way this comes out of here. I was hoping to just remove the plastic shroud, but it looks like the whole heatsink's coming off with it. So I guess we get to learn a little bit about the CPU in this process. Okay, that's our heatsink. Nice and copper. Now this has some nasty sounding bearings in it, but I noticed that on some of these you can just lift that right out, so we're going to try that here in a second. But let's look at what we got here. Okay, and it looks like I was wrong. This is not a 700. This is in fact a Celeron 600. But as you'll notice, it is in a socket. That's pretty handy. Oop. Gotta look at where I'm looking here. So there's our socketed Celeron. Looks like we should probably replace the heatsink goo that's on there. I don't see any jumpers for bus speeds or anything. That would be interesting. I wonder if I stick one of the copper mines I have in here, if it'll actually recognize it. We'll have to try that out. Here's the north bridge. And this would be the South Bridge potentially / PCI interface. The rest of the components on this look pretty good, so let's go ahead and check out this CPU fan. See what the deal is. Looks like there's no easy way. Grab some needle nose. Now sometimes they'll just pull right out. This one's a little less cooperative. Really would like to lubricate these bearings. Oh, looks like there's some lube already in there. Oh, this is cool. Don't think I've seen that before. Yeah, that's the thing about Sun. They really want their computers to last. So these little details like this really help. Looks like I could just put a few drops of oil on there and put it back together. See if I can make it make noise. Doesn't sound too good, does it? Let me go ahead and lube this up. Okay, we are back. I went ahead and re-lubed the bearings on the CPU cooler. Put a piece of tape over the bearing hole. As you can see, we're a lot better off. Cleaned up all the old heatsink compound on the bottom here. Cleaned off the processor, so go ahead and slap this back together. Now, for anyone who does computers, should know that it's very important to put the right amount of heatsink compound on your processor. For these flip chip deals, by flip chip I mean that the actual processor die is exposed. It's on the top side of the chip instead of the bottom. You only need a tiny little drop right in the center. Pick that up so you can see it. Okay, that is all you need. Nothing else. And after you clean your heatsink and stuff, you'll want to avoid touching the top of the processor or the bottom of the heatsink where it makes direct contact with the processor die. Actually, just fucking put that on upside down. Go me. Okay. Now that we are on the correct direction, go ahead and tighten this up. Now when you tighten up screw clips like this, you'll want to do opposite corners. Make sure you go evenly so the pressure is distributed as such. Stop there really quick, give it a good wiggle. You want to wiggle it, make sure the goo is squeezed around. You can't really see in there to see if it's making. It looks like it is. I'm going to go ahead and snug all this up. And there we have it. We are ready to put this board in the system. Let's go ahead and crowd with me. Okay. So now here's the tough part. I don't have 2 available slots. If you remember the card, we have the actual card itself and 1 extra parallel and serial. And since I do a lot of microcontrollers and everything else, we'll definitely want the serial if possible. So here's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to pull out that fiber channel card here on the bottom for now. We really don't need it. It's not necessary. So these are screwless. You squeeze these 2 tabs, lift up, and the card comes out. So, see, 64-bit PCI, and this is the front side. It's Q Logic. Let's see if I can find the Sun part number. It's FC2310. Looks like it's not a bad card. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, we'll want to pull our air dam. Let's see. It'll take me 1 sec to take care of that. Okay, after getting in there and unclipping it, it just pulls right out. Little handhold there. And we'll need to remove one of these blanks. Smells like burning paper. I wonder what the party out back is doing. Okay, looks like we're in and fully seated. I'll have to stick my head up in there to make sure. This backside's got a little... Something's going on. Oh, I see. Pull it out. Basically what's holding us up is this nut. It's preventing us from being fully seated, and this is one of the things I had to do on the XVR 1200 as well. Now I kind of think I'm going to have the same issue as I did with the other. Oh, maybe not. Double check the bottom there. And we are fully seated. So now all that's left is reassembly. This is a serial cable I use for the console. Normally the v880 does not come with a graphics card of any kind. All functions are done through the console. The v880Z, for example, or anytime you add a graphics card, there's normally about 5 minutes between the time you turn it on to the time you actually see something on the display. And the only real way to know what's going on is with this cable. So I'll go ahead and plug this into the serial. You just need a laptop. Situated. Hi, Bubba. What's up? Can you speak? He doesn't actually talk that much. Okay, the brightness is all the way up. Okay, I have my serial console up. So we'll go ahead and power this on. Now whenever you add new hardware, you'll always want to start in diagnostics mode. So you are going to see the full extended tests. Here we go. Now that it's done testing, it's bringing up the environment. Okay. .32 gigs of RAM total. And since all the RAM slots are full, each bank uses 8-way interleaving. And now we have our graphics display. And there we are. All I would need to do is issue a boot -R to reconfigure the operating system. So let's go ahead and do that. And that'll be pretty much it. The -R reconfigures the device structure in the operating system. Take just a second for the display to come back. And there you are. So I hope you enjoyed the tour of my Sun system. I will post a later video on actually using the PCI interface card, the SPARC Solaris machine. So until next time, have a good one.